Okay, well, the title of today's talk is Ship of Fools. I was going to call it Heaving Up and Heaving To, but I thought that might have been a little too salty, so we'll call it Ship of Fools. So some of you know that I went on a sailing trip last month, November, from Nova Scotia to Bermuda to St. Martin, and it was quite a trip, and I've been dreading this trip for a year now. And I just decided, I have my sailboat in Charleston now, and I decided that I needed to just get a little more experience before I start sailing on the Atlantic as a captain. So I thought it was prudent to actually take a trip, open ocean trip, with as a crew member. And this captain, John Kretschmer, does these trips he does them all the time, but he does this one just every few years because it's so daunting. And so last year, actually a few years ago, he did this trip, and the ship behind him that left, about a 47-foot sailboat, was never found. All right, yeah, I know, that's what I said, oh geez, all right. So when I learned about this, I'd already signed up for the trip, and it was, so for 8 months, I would wake up every couple couple months in a cold sweat. Are you really going to do this? Seriously? And, because I have my limit too. And, but I just kept really studying my fear, really being with my fear rather than running from it. So that's the theme of the talk today, is fear. And how can we use our own fear to actually step through to the other side, to step beyond our fear to live even more fully than we are right now. So the sailing story. So we started in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia in early November. It was just absolutely stunning, just beautiful. I mean, it's all, the buildings are of the old, the colors of the old nautical, themes. And, I just thought I'd get up at 6 a.m. before we had to depart and walk around town. So I'm walking around town taking pictures and sending pictures to family and Angelica and, sending final goodbyes. And I come across this monument, this big Gloucester type of monument to all the dead sailors and fishermen, and there's like hundreds and hundreds. I'm like, there's a picture of me in front of the sailboat. I look so sad, like I'm never coming back again. Like, why did you do this? You just had to push it, Mike. You just had to push it. So what did I get myself into? So sure enough, the first day into this trip, we came into a gale, which you're going to find in November in the North Atlantic, and it was 40 to 50 knots of wind and 20-foot seas. Now, I know that I checked this against the captain. They always look bigger than, they looked more like 100-foot waves of, 70 knots of wind, but it was actually 20-foot seas with 50 knots of wind, and just terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And the two things I remember most was, one is every 8 hours you're behind the wheel. It's your job. It's your duty behind the wheel, and nobody wants to be out there in that kind of weather. So and we're clipped in, so we're relatively safe. And the one, I remember seeing this wave, and I'm like, it'll go down, and it's getting closer and closer. It never went down, and it just came right on the boat, just like you'd be in the ocean, just or swimming. It just dumped right into. And I remember holding this bar for dear life as this thing just engulfed the boat. The second thing I know. I'm like, what the heck? And on these foul weather gear that they sell for hundreds, and Angelica bought me this $700 foul weather gear. I'm just drenched. I'm totally wet. I'm like, absolutely pointless. And then the second thing that I remember most from that trip was it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and inside the boat there's two sea berths. There's 4 people can sleep in the middle, and then there's 2 berths in the back. But in the middle of the boat, the berths are all the way on each side, and you're strapped in so the boat, can move, fall out. Anyway, it was like 3 in the morning, and it was like a cannon went off, like boom, and the whole boat starts, and my head went up, and the guy who was across the boat from me, his head went up, and we're looking at each other, and he starts going higher and higher and higher, and I'm like, what does that mean? Oh, that means the boat's going like this, all right? And it came down, and everything was fine. But those are the 2 things that I remember most. So what the heck did I learn from this trip? First of all, I'm never doing a trip like this ever again. But I did learn some other things from this. And the first is, we live in an absolutely magnificent world. Absolutely magnificent world. I mean, just the things I saw, it took my breath away again and again and again. Looking back at Nova Scotia with the colors from the sea was just unbelievable. And the water near Nova Scotia, it's like this dark cobalt. It's not like Lake Superior. It's a darker blue, and it's like this cobalt, and it's just beautiful. And then, the sunsets and the stars and the mountains of, water. And then we entered the Gulf Stream. And if anybody doesn't know what that is, it's like a river in the ocean that flows from Florida all the way to Ireland, to the UK. And that's why the UK is relatively warm, because the Gulf Stream flows there, and it's about 100 miles wide. And so suddenly you're in this cold, cobalt water, and then suddenly it's 70 degrees, there's birds, there's all this life. It's like the Caribbean water, and you're off of Nova Scotia. It's just fascinating, just what we saw out there. So there's a great quote from a captain. He says, "Sailing to me isn't mere recreation, it's religion. I see God's face in each puffy cloud, discover his reflection in each ocean spray. I hear his whispers in the wind, his laughter in the seagull's cry. Mother Ocean is my cathedral. Sometimes at sea I discover I'm holding my breath, just wondering if life could possibly be this good, this real, this true. I've spent my entire life chasing the horizon in search of such random moments, and I have found them more often than most." So absolutely, the first thing I wanted to share was we live in a magnificent world, and you don't have to risk your life. You can just, go right around here in Lake Harriet right now. It's around us all the time. The second thing I learned was to be fully alive, we must each face our own fear, and we all have them. And it's best to stay humble in life, because what's comfort for me is panic for Michael. What's panic for Michael is, or what's comfort for him is absolutely panic for me. As I get older, there's certain things like flying. I think I've mentioned flying has been becoming worse and worse for me. It wasn't a problem when I was younger, but now that I've gotten older, it's starting to look like a long, hot tube that I can't get out of. And I'll be sitting there, and I'll have my face next to the window, and there's a little kid sitting next to me like, "You're sweating, mister." And I'm like, "These things go down!" I haven't done that yet. I haven't done that, but I'm getting closer. So we all have our fears. But can I be on a boat in the middle of the Atlantic? Yeah, pretty much, but it definitely had my attention. So we must each face our fears. And what I've noticed with fear is it's kind of like the airlines. Before you can possibly think about helping someone else or be sharing with someone else, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first, all right? And for each of us, it's stepping toward that fear. And once we step toward that fear, then we're in a position from our abundance to give to other people, from your overflowing to give to other people. But until then, you got to get your own oxygen mask on. So it was so interesting observing the different personalities on the boat. We had 7 people on the boat. There was the jokester. This guy kept everybody laughing all the time, even in the face of terrible things. We had the head in the sand, absolutely depressed, totally helpless. She just would put her head, just didn't want to be there. It was like Eeyore, we're all going to die. Is today the day? Is today the day? We had bossy and controlling. This guy did it under the guise of helping the captain, but he's actually very controlling. So what he was doing with his fear was controlling. We had selfish and self-absorbed. What this guy did is absolutely nothing. He wouldn't even get, lift a finger to help anybody. Totally all about me. We had denial, willfully oblivious. This woman was hilarious. I'd be talking to her, and she'd be telling me the details of the last View show that she saw. So Whoopi Goldberg's talking to Barbara Walters, and I'm talking to her, I'm looking at her, and meanwhile, right behind her, there's like this apartment-sized building of a wave coming. And so anyway, so then Whoopi turns to, and I'm like, do you not see what's, total denial. Total denial. And then there was numb and robotic, not saying anything here. This person would just numb himself off, totally dutiful, totally robotic, I will not feel a thing, and shut himself off, so that would be me. But nobody could point a finger, so there you go. So it was Seinfeld. Remember the show Seinfeld, where he's dating himself? He's dating this woman, and all her foibles, it starts bugging him, and he finds out that he's actually dating himself. Well, I was on a boat with myself because I could find every single one of these personalities on the boat. I'm stuck in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with myself, all right? So here we go. So what was interesting, and in fact, I just saw a great play which talks about how do each of us handle our fear? What do we do with our fear? What's our fallback? Is it to numb ourselves? Is it to become controlling? Is it to take over? Is it to be in denial? What is... we can each ask ourselves, and what I would just suggest is that there's gold in them, our hills. Meaning, if you go toward that and you explore that and you look at that and you get to the other side of it, that's where you're going to find a huge amount of gold, meaning more life, more aliveness. So, but the key is to turn toward it, and we'll talk about that. I went to the Book of Mormon, the play, a couple months ago. My gosh, what a hilarious show. It said, there's this one song, and it said, you could be feeling a whole lot better than you feel today. You say you got a problem? Well, that's no problem. It's super easy not to feel that way. When you start to get confused because of thoughts in your head, don't feel those feelings. Turn it off like a light switch. Just go click. Treat those pesky feelings like a reading light and turn them off. Like a light switch, just go bap. Really, what's so hard about that? Just turn it off. Just turn it off. All right, so once again, strategies to not feel, strategies to deal with something that's very uncomfortable. And none of them work. What does work, and what was fascinating as a metaphor for life, is what the captain did. Now, I know this guy. I've known him for about 10 years. I went on another trip years ago. And he was scared. I know he was scared. And he almost lost somebody exactly where we were at this point in the ocean. Somebody almost went overboard years ago. And he didn't say anything. I came up one morning and there was just mountains of waves coming at the boat. And he just sat there with his coffee and just stared at the waves, just studying, staring at the thing that caused him the most fear. And when he got clear, then we did something which I'll never forget. You know, as Megan said with Krishnamurti, rather than running away or controlling or suppressing the fear, what he did is he understood the fear. He turned toward, that means watch, learn, and directly come in contact with the fear. So studying the waves, what he did is what we call heaving to. And that's where you turn the boat. It's so counterintuitive. You've got these massive waves. Instead of running away and suppressing or repressing, you turn toward the waves. You turn toward the very thing that is terrorizing you, and you go toward it. And that's what we did, actually. I'll never forget this. At 3 a.m, it was really scary. I was out there with this other, the other Minnesota Mike, and we decided to heave to. So the captain turned the boat toward the waves, and then we steered one way and backed the sails the other way. And what it did is it stopped the boat in the middle of the ocean. And suddenly terrifying became absolutely thrilling. Absolutely thrilling. So I started giggling, and the other guy started, and the captain started. We all started giggling because it was suddenly this thing that was terrifying was like the roller coaster ride of your life, and you felt perfectly safe. So it's like when you go through that fear and get to the other side, that's where your joy is. That's where your aliveness is. And by God, you know you're alive. Does that make any sense? All right. So it felt kind of like, I felt exactly like the Shawshank Redemption after he goes through the tunnel of foulness and comes out the other side, and he's got his arms up and the rain's coming down and all he can do is giggle. That's what it felt like. And by then the boat did smell quite a bit like that too. And so we were just out there in the rain going over these massive waves, totally safe, totally comfortable, and just giggling. So Ralph Waldo Emerson says, do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is absolutely certain. So turn toward your fear, and that's where you're going to find more aliveness. That's where you're going to find more of yourself. And I can't tell you what that fear is. We all know what they are, what that is for each of us. So the third thing I would say that I learned on this trip is once you do find and you turn toward your fear, once you do find that joy, that aliveness, it's not enough just to walk around. Well, I'm in great shape. If you want to maintain it and keep it, you got to share it, and you got to give it away, and you got to give it to your people. And so, who are your people? Who are my people? Who are our people? Well, in the movie A Year of Living Dangerously, the reporter Billy Kwan is a witness to abject poverty and asks, "What must we do? What must we do?" And he answers his own question: we must give with love to whoever God has placed in our path. So if you ever ask, who are my people? Well, they're the people that are right in your path. They're the closest people around you. So for years, in the people that I would coach or meet with my work, I would reference, well, you should go see Byron Katie, or you should go, there's this guy, Dave O'Shawn, over in Finland. You should go on a retreat with him, or you should read this book from Eckhart Tolle. And it's the weirdest thing. Every time I would mention these people, the energy between me and that person would fall flat. Like it was like, just, whoa. And it started to occur to me, oh, this person isn't Dave's Dave's not here for that person. Byron Katie's not for this person. But I'm all, I've got my foibles. I'm not perfect. Go see that really good teacher. No, that person can hear from me. And it got me thinking, maybe that's the way things are supposed to go from now on. Maybe each of us has our people. Maybe, and it's so interesting to watch at the end of these services. My people are not Michael's people. Michael's people are not my people. They line up to talk to Michael. They resonate with Michael. So each of us has the people that resonate with us. We're supposed to serve those people. And it's not glorious and it's not glamorous. But those people that are in your path, those are your people. And are you actually showing up for them? And I think if we turn toward our fear and serve those people that are closest to us, that's where it all comes together. So my daughter Megan is a yoga teacher in Milwaukee, and she's getting just a little following of yoga students, and those are her people. Now they're not my people. Can you imagine me teaching a yoga class? As I tell Megan, I have Shavasana perfected. Shavasana is the corpse pose. I am really good at that, and I'm working on mountain. I got that one too. Yeah, I'll have two postures, Meg, for the whole hour. So serve these people, serve your people. So who are your people? And it's, I would say it's our nature to serve. It's our absolute, it's like, I've mentioned my dog Zara, this African lion hunter of a dog. I get her walking and she just goes crazy because her nature is to hunt things down and run through the woods, and that's her nature. And I think our nature is, if you can first right your boat, flatten your boat by stepping through to your fear, and then find your people that you're to serve, that's where that contentment, that, I did my part. I did my part. And there's no glory in it, but you can rest because it feels like I have done my part. And on the boat, what was interesting is that the one woman who was very depressed and quiet throughout, the captain finally came to the other Mike and I, and he was a big jokester, and he said, hey, look, you two guys, I trust you guys. Can you take her on your shift? Because I'm afraid she's going to slip off the boat, and, take her on your shift and kind of take her under your wing. I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely. So we didn't really know what to, and I didn't know I was supposed to serve her and help her. And, so I'm like, sure, absolutely. So we're sitting there, and it occurred to me more than anything what this woman wanted was to be one of the guys. She wanted to be one of the guys. And so at one point, Mike is behind the wheel, and he's like, hey, Sandy, would you go downstairs and get me a cup of coffee? And I'll have a little cream if you don't mind. And so Sandy's like, well, it's really slippery, and the boat's on a big 45-degree angle, and I might slip, and I'm not sure, and I'm not even sure how to. And I go, Sandy, hey, can I give you a suggestion? I teach communication skills. And so when somebody in an environment like this asks you to get a cup of coffee, you turn to Mike and you go, Mike, go get your own effing copy. And so she turns like, Mike, go get your own effing coffee. And we busted up laughing, and for the rest of this trip, she was swearing like a sailor. And she'd come up in the morning, good morning, bitches. And it's like, and so, I didn't know how to serve her, but I knew how to be and when you are serving most, you're just being yourself. You're not even aware that you're serving. You're just being yourself. So that is just one example. So in closing, I truly believe that maybe this is how the world will transform. Maybe this is the second coming of the Christ, where the Christ consciousness wakes up in each of us, but it wakes up not in a big way, but from one person to the next, to the next, to the next. And if each of us serves those people that are in our life, maybe there's a collective consciousness that will click, and that's how the world will change. Because it is fascinating how fast, if you haven't noticed, collective consciousness, when it does change, how fast it does change. All right, I've got two examples, and I'll close with that. And one is my fiancée, Angelica, when she's Russian, and when she was telling me about when she was in college, she's very rebellious, still very rebellious. She would wear a chain with a lock to her classes to rebel against the Soviet Union. Now, this was 1988, 1989, And it was scowled, there's lots of disapproval, but she got away with it. If she had done that 10 years previous, she probably would have been thrown in jail, all right? Now, the same thing, what was fascinating to observe here in Minnesota, how fast the wall came down. That was the collective consciousness, changed overnight. And here in Minnesota, 2 years ago, if somebody said, hey, there's going to be legalized gay marriage in Minnesota, we would all be like, not in a million years. In fact, there's some conservative factions that are trying to make that a law that will never happen. And collective consciousness around the country, overnight, things have changed that quick. So perhaps if we actually embrace and serve our people, maybe the collective consciousness of generosity and love and brotherhood, or as John Lennon said, a brotherhood of man, imagine all the people sharing the world in peace. Perhaps that's what we're in for. So, amen. We'll always go for another song from Michael.
Oh, yeah. Well, we do this circle song thing that I actually wrote for this group, so. We are children of the stars. We are made of sacred light. We carry in our hearts the sound of one. Will you sing with me? I am, I am, I am. I am, I am, I am. I am. We are one with the infinite. We shine with magnificence. We carry in our soul the light of the one. I am. I am. I am. I am. Oh, I am. I am. I am. We are everlasting, ever love, forever light, forever love. I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, Lord, I am, I am. And I will carry this love throughout this day. With a heart full of gratitude, I will pray. I am, I am, I am. I'm gonna sing it out loud. I am, I am, I am. Oh Lord, I'm gonna sing it out loud. I am here. Oh, I am here, Lord.
So as we spring forward into the new year, I'd like to encourage you to turn and embrace your greatest fear and serve your people. They are out there just waiting for you. If we each do our part, no matter how seemingly big or small, perhaps that is how heaven will be spread upon this earth. So wishing you a very happy new year, and God bless you all. Amen. Woohoo!